as we're being joined by Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star. And Kyle, it's been so busy here of late. I'm what I do and cover, and I can only imagine you, because we've got the IU women that are just rolling, the men, the college basketball season is coming down to that time, and of course the high school season, of course, as everything is already underway. I know you guys had a great piece out the other day of listing all these sectionals, and where a lot of these guys, Flory Badunga versus Lafayette Jeff, Jalen Harrison, Hamilton Southeastern versus Carmel, Xavier Robinson, North Central, Warren Central, just all these different locations laid out. And you also listed who had the toughest draws of some of these teams. I'll start with Lawrence Central.
Yeah, looking at my computer as I talk to you here on the phone, so hopefully I stay on track here. But yeah, we had a little bit of a story came out today on the toughest draws, and we'll have one tomorrow on some of the better draws that people had, the 10 best, 10 worst. A lot of sectional coverage, but yeah, probably Lawrence Central in sectional 10. They got Warren Central, and then they'll play Cathedral in the semifinal if they win that. Cathedral's defending champs. That's about as tough as it gets. That's always a tough sectional. Greenfield Central, Brebeuf Jesuit, Jennings County, I thought, had a pretty tough one. Having to beat a Bedford North Lawrence team that's really been playing well, and then they'd have to see Jeffersonville, who just beat them in that sectional at Seymour. Fishers has a pretty tough one as well. They're in, that's a sectional 8 where you're not going to have any. There's really no easy draws there at all. But they have their rival HSC in the first game. HSC is a much better team than their record shows, and then they would get Zionsville in the sectional semifinal at sectional 8. So that would be a pretty tough one as well. But like I said, there's really not an easy one there. But yeah, several others listed there that are pretty tough, and it's kind of the luck of the draw or the unluck of the draw in this case. But yeah, should be fun. Start next week, so trying to get a lot of stuff done before then, and get ready for the sectional starting Tuesday.
Yeah, I look down south to see Evansville Bossy down in Class 3A, sectional 32 at Boonville. You got all those Evansville schools down there. That's always a dogfight.
Yeah, Bossy plays at Boonville, and they play. They have to get through Mater Dei or Evansville Memorial, probably both of those, just to reach the championship. So that'll be a tough situation for them. But yeah, that's always a good one. Evansville probably not overall maybe as strong this year in that area as some years, but that'll be a good sectional there in 3A.
Also, over all of our listeners up on WJOB up in the region, Crown Point. You've got the Bulldogs as they host the Class 4A sectional and taking on that Portage team that they beat earlier this month.
Yeah, they have a really good player. I've seen them a couple times. AJ Lux from he's going to Bellarmine. Senior, can really shoot it, and but they have really struggled with Chesterton, like a lot of teams have these last couple of years. Chesterton probably not as much on the forefront this year without Travis Grayson, who graduated, but they're still a very good team, 17-5. And Crown Point, even if they beat Portage, who's also a pretty good team, they would have to again play Chesterton, and then probably Valpo sitting over there on the other side with Mason Jones, who's a really good player, who's going to Ball State, and they're sitting over there with a pretty good draw on the other half of that bracket in sectional 2 at Crown Point. The good thing for Crown Point is they are at home in that sectional, and that's a neat gym and a pretty good home environment there.
I want to talk about some of these guys, a lot of IU targets. Flory Badunga I mentioned earlier, or actually I'll start with Trent Sisley, sectional 31. That's going to be at Washington, a great place to play, one of those great tournament venues, taking on Southridge.
Yeah, they're having a good season overall. I had a chance to see them earlier this year and then in the summer a few times, and looked like they were getting better as a team. I mean, that team's kind of growing up around Trent a little bit. He's growing up obviously as a sophomore now, but having a great season. They play, like you said, play Southridge. That's a single game at the Hatchet House on Tuesday, and then they would play they would play at the host Hatchets in the semifinals. So, that one probably sets up to possibly see North Davies in the championship game, and that's kind of a unique story in itself. North Davies was this champion in 1A last year, and then moved all the way up to 3A by their own choice this year. So all these teams in their sectional can probably try to throw it back in their face for choosing to play up in 3A instead of 2A, but yeah, I would still say, North Davies probably the favorite there, and Heritage Hills maybe sets up to see them in the sectional championship, and that would be a fun matchup. North Davies, that's a team that, Jalen Mullen, senior, I think he's got a possibility to be an Indian All-Star, but I'm not sure, that'd be a tough matchup for them trying to beat Trent Sisley and the Heritage Hills team. So that's an interesting sectional. I think North Davies is the favorite, but Heritage Hill's probably a clear sleeper type team.
Flory Badunga mentioned up at playing for Kokomo, another IU target, but big time IU target, probably the best player in the state right now, taking on Lafayette Jeff. So they're going to get they're up in the northern side of things. What do you expect to see out of the Kokomo squad?
They should win that. I think they play. I actually had a chance to see them play Anderson on Friday night up there, sold out. Great crowd up there at the Anderson. Probably the only negative by some people was that it wasn't played at the Wigwam. But he played great. He had 9 dunks and really kind of dominated the game. And
did you say they played a game? They played a game at the Wigwam?
They did not play at the Wigwam. I think that's the only thing people were kind of wishing that that game would have been played there. But yeah, they play at their home gym, which is the old Madison Heights gym in Anderson. So yeah, they did not play it at the Wigwam. Hopefully people didn't misunderstand that. But
I was just looking at something. I said, "Oh man, did I miss a game at the Wigwam?" I was going to be awfully upset.
Absolutely not. They did not play there. But yeah, but Flory, he's just he's a unique player. They're going to be playing at home and at Kokomo, and they should be favored to win that. Harrison out of West Lafayette is probably their toughest challenger there, and then Marion's sitting there on the other side. I had a chance to see that game earlier this season. Marion and Kokomo play each other, and Marion's got a Jalen Townsend, a big sophomore guard, sort of a guard wing type player who he gave Kokomo a lot of trouble in the first half of that game. But Kokomo, I think, pretty clearly a favorite. Harrison also is a good team. Ben Henderson is their senior guard who averages about 21 a game. But yeah, Kokomo, I think, playing at home, they have a bye into Friday night, so they would probably play Harrison or potentially Lafayette Jeff in that first game on Friday. But yeah, I think they're going to be in pretty good position to advance and move on into the regional.
Then Jalen Harrelson and versus Hamilton Southeastern at Carmel, another one of the IU targets.
Yeah, and they're like I said, they have a pretty tough. I put them in one of our tougher draws, although they do play Hamilton Southeastern, who's 7-16 in the first game. But then they would have to play Zionsville. Zionsville's kind of been up and down. They're 14-7, but they have a Penn State commit, Logan Imes at playing guard, and then Nick Rehard, who's going to UNC Charlotte at power forward. They got beat pretty bad by Cathedral last night. Zionsville did. So I don't know. It's kind of and Fishers has a team that they're sort of they can be up and down as well. They're 13-11 now. They lost to North Central last night by 11, but looked like North Central handled them pretty easily. So you just don't know. Fishers is a little bit young still, a little bit definitely younger than last year when Harrelson came in as a freshman. He was basically playing with a bunch of seniors. Now he's kind of the experienced guy in a lot of ways. So just a little bit different team this year, and they've been very up and down, 13-11 right now. But he's been a lot of fun to watch all season. He's putting up great numbers for almost every game, and I think that will how he plays will basically dictate how Fishers does in the sectional. But they've got a pretty pretty challenging draw. That HSC team played them pretty close earlier this year. Of course, they're rivals in the same school district, and that's never an easy. It's always a close game, it seems like, when those two play each other.
Dropping down a little bit in class, and actually Jack Benter, the Purdue recruit with Brownstown Central. I know their first round game is going to be a cakewalk as they'll take on Pekin. No offense to the folks at Eastern Pekin, but you mentioned that would set up a potential rematch with the defending state champion Providence Pioneers, who are 17-4 this year, and Coach Lance Stemler, an assistant coach on that team, former IU player as well. So Providence still rolling.
Yeah, that would be super interesting, I think. And, I think there's a chance, a pretty good chance we'll see that game. That would be down at Southwestern Hanover in Sectional 46. But, Brownstown is just, they're very good, even beyond Jack Benter. They've got some really good shooters, some good players. I was very impressed with Providence last year as well when I got a chance to see them in the state championship. Ryan Miller, the coach there, does a great job with that team. They're sitting there at 18-4 now after, I think they've won. Gosh, they've only lost one game here recently to Silver Creek, but they haven't really lost since Christmas other than that game. So that'll be, that potentially could be one of the best, games on that Friday night. That Friday sectional semifinal night is always just fantastic night. You wish you could be like 10 different places, but, that would be a good ticket to get down there at Hanover and see that one. But and then you've got Southwestern Hanover. The host team is 19-3, and they have a really good draw. They're going to play. They have a bye into the semifinal. They'll play probably Henryville, but should win that, and then they'll play whoever comes out of the other side. So they're sitting there with a pretty good draw on their home floor. So Brownstown's got some work to do. That'll be a tough sectional for them.
Yeah, and also someone just mentioned. Kevin, thanks a lot. Pointing out Sharon Wilkerson still over at Jeffersonville. They're having a good year. You mentioned earlier they will be one of the teams that Jennings County has to go through down in southern Indiana. And that couple of IU players down there right next to each other. Sharon Wilkerson at Jeffersonville, Lance Stemler, an assistant at Providence. So that's kind of cool. But the IHSA this year seems kind of like college basketball in that there's not those dominant teams that there have been at certain times. And is there a little more parity this year?
Well, there is beyond Ben Davis. Ben Davis is 25-0 after last night, and they have really if 25-0 playing the schedule they do, they basically beat everyone in the top 10. So it's not a product of an easy schedule by any means. But beyond that, yeah, it's even in our area here, it's like you don't know who's number 2 through 10, on a nightly basis. I covered Center Grove Brownsburg last night. Center Grove won by 1, but neither team, could shake each other the whole game. And that's kind of been the way it's been all year for a lot of those teams who are after Ben Davis. Even Ben Davis has been pushed a few times and had some close games too, but they're the team to beat. And then it's like, everyone else is relatively close to them. So it's not like it's a Ben Davis and a huge gap. I've heard some people say that. I don't necessarily believe that to be the case. I do believe Ben Davis is the best team, and they have no weaknesses necessarily, but I don't think it's a stretch. If somebody beats them, I'm not going to be completely shocked, but it depends on the matchups. There's even some of the better teams out there that don't really match up very well with Ben Davis, and you have to have an interior presence like Kokomo does, but you also have to have guards who can handle their pressure and shoot. And honestly, one of those teams is the first team they'll play in the sectional, and that's Southport. Southport took Ben Davis to overtime back in late November. I think it was Thanksgiving weekend or maybe the week after, but they have a team. They have guards who can shoot. They have they have an athletic wing. They just don't have depth. And they have not played great lately, but that's a game I would circle just to, kind of like that could be, upset special. You're sitting there the first night like, wow, Ben Davis is tied or, whatever the case is. But that's a team I think to look out for. I think Pike also in that sectional matches up somewhat well with Ben Davis, but you know, it's they're gonna have a hard road, but there's a lot of teams out there that I think are capable of making a pretty deep run. And it's, I think, a product of that really good senior class in the state this year. There's just a lot of good teams that are older, you know, because that class is very deep.